trying to do anything new in your life, if you're trying to create something new, but yet you have all these emotions stored in your body, you're not going to be able to do that because your autopilot in the background is to feel scared, to feel fear, to feel shame, to feel guilt. All of those things, they're all stuck in your body. Hey guys, I just wanted to send you a friendly reminder before hopping into this week's episode that our September retreat is coming up in only a month and a half. That's September 5th through the 9th in Taos, New Mexico. That is our next ketamine-assisted breathwork retreat. If you want to know more information, you can click on the link in the description. We did a free masterclass webinar on who our retreats are for, what you can expect after, and again, going over the 5 most asked questions. And I'll put the link to that in the description as well. It's an hour-long masterclass. It will answer all your questions and tell you, I think you'll walk away with an understanding if a retreat is good for you. So I just wanted to remind you, because flying into Taos, the longer you wait, the price can go up on flights. So we wanted to send this quick reminder out to anyone that is interested to check out the information and then reach out if the retreat is calling to you. I hope to see some of you there. Most people think, I can breathe. Why do I need to learn how to breathe? Breathing is just something that we do in the background. It's a very great question. My passion is to teach people the power of their own breath, not only on a physical level, but an emotional level and a spiritual level. A lot of what I teach, because I am a Soma certified instructor, is steeped in ancient wisdom, and it's based in pranayama yoga. The basis is breath retention and using your breath to extend your life ultimately, and longevity and feeling healthy and feeling good. So there's all kinds of different breathwork techniques out there, different purposes, different intentions for all of these different kinds of breathwork techniques. And so what I want to do today is just to give you an idea of simply what breathwork is and how it can impact you on a physical level, an emotional level, and a spiritual level. That's why I love the breathwork that I teach, because there's no one size fits all. There's no only one way to do things. The breathwork that I teach has such a wide range of tools, has such a wide range of outcomes depending on what you want to work with in your life. There's so many different ways that you can use this. Your breath is yours. You don't have to pay a doctor for it. You have to go to, big retreats, although those are great to be in the energy. Your breath is yours. You literally can use it every single day and every single moment. So today I want to talk about how breath work can impact you in all of those areas and some simple techniques you can use in each of those areas to start practicing it today, to put it into practice today. So when you go to the doctor, they talk to you about healthy eating habits, exercising, not getting so stressed, learning how to relax, and they don't ask you about your breathing habits, which in my studies and in my opinion is just not, if not more important than all of those things. The problem is we're not taught at a really young age how to consciously breathe. We let it become something that does happen in the background, and what happens is we don't create healthy breathing habits. And as we go through the first 7 years of our life and we're really being formed into who we are, there's things that happen, just sometimes traumas that happen. It doesn't even necessarily to be a trauma, just feelings. You're soaking in, you're literally in a hypnotic state those first 7 years. So you're taking in everything from the outside and you're turning that into feelings in your body, because you don't have a comprehension yet. Your brain isn't developed enough to have a comprehension of what's happening. If you hear your parents fighting, you don't have the discernment to figure out, oh, maybe they're just raising their voices. They're not even yelling at each other. Or maybe they're just, whatever the situation may be. You don't have that discernment. So you take that in as feelings. You take that in as stress. And what happens when our bodies go into a state of stress, our breathing is the first thing that is affected, and we overbreathe. And when we trigger this fight or flight response in our brain, that's that stress response, that's the sympathetic nervous system in our brain. When that gets triggered, we actually breathe shallow. We breathe through our mouth. When we're doing that, when we're having this erratic breathing and we're breathing shallow and through our chest instead of through our belly, and we're getting into that state, by breathing that way, it actually keeps continuing to trigger that sympathetic response. So you're caught in this really vicious loop of your breath working against you. Your breath is keeping you in this sort of fight or flight response, in this stress response. And the thing is, we're never taught about that. We're not taught that we have these responses in our brain, the sympathetic response and the parasympathetic response. And so because we're not taught these things, because we're not taught how to utilize our breath, it starts to work against us. And as we get older and older and older and we aren't taught how to breathe, the stress gets worse, our bodies get worse. We're not even conscious that we're unconscious. We're not even conscious that we're continuing this loop of this stress response. And so you're constantly having your breath work against you. So physically, these are the things that can happen. When you are over breathing, you cannot utilize oxygen properly in your cells, meaning if your carbon dioxide levels aren't high enough, the O2 will not be released from your red blood cells into the tissue cells. All sorts of damage can happen. Oxidative stress after a while, eventually inflammation, which is a lot of the cause of autoimmune diseases. You're continuously keeping that stress response on, so your heart is working overtime. All the systems in your body are working overtime because your body is not utilizing oxygen as efficiently as possible. So when we're over breathing because we're in stress, or holding our breath, a lot of times people hold their breath because that's what we do when we're stressed. We hold on to life. Taking a big deep breath is the first thing we do when we come into this world. And so that's what our bodies automatically will do when we're trying to hold on to life, when we're not letting go and living in the flow and letting things sort of happen and surrendering. We're holding on really tightly. People tend to hold their breath when they do this. So on a physical level, it can affect you physically in so many different ways. You can have bad sleeping habits because, again, this way of breathing, because you're not consciously breathing, it's keeping you trapped in that stress response. Anxious, lots of anxiety, and trust me, this is coming from somebody. I used to suffer from all of these things. I had all kinds of sleeping pills that they gave me, all kinds of anxiety pills that they gave me, and your body has all of the chemicals to make those. You're gonna have less energy because your body is working harder and harder and harder to try to reach a state of homeostasis, and while you are actually working against it because you're not taught. All the research now is pointing to many different diseases that they find are being caused because you have really bad breathing habits. You also will have longevity. So that is the ultimate goal of pranayama yoga, is longevity, extending your life. If you think about yogis and monks that live up in the Himalayas, they live in really high altitudes, which means there's higher level of carbon dioxide levels. Through pranayama yoga and in my soma teachings and techniques that I teach to people, the ultimate goal is learning how to not take as many breaths per minute. And that starts with getting a higher tolerance for carbon dioxide. That means consciously breathing. So because their systems in their bodies are living at higher altitudes, they have a higher tolerance for carbon dioxide, they actually live longer. This has also been shown in the animal kingdom. The animals that have been shown to live the longest are able to hold their breath the longest. So on a very basic physical level, some things that you can start doing right away is just starting to become conscious of your breathing habits. So one of the first things that I have people do in the first week in my Breathwork mini-series course is to set their alarm 3 times a day. And when that alarm goes off, they have to check in with how they are breathing. Most of the time, as I said, people are so unconscious of how they're breathing, they don't even realize that they're holding their breath or they're not taking a deep breath. And when you're not taking a deep breath, your brain literally will not think straight because you're in a fight or flight response. You can't be creative. You can't solve problems. You can't get into a flow state because you are literally working against yourself. You're in the sympathetic nervous system in your brain. There is no reasoning when you're in the sympathetic nervous system. It's literally fight or flight. All it is getting your body and your mind ready to fight an enemy, flight, from the enemy or freeze. And as we all know, in the world we live in today, it's really, really easy to get in those stressful states because of everything that's happening outside of you. And this is your number one tool to regulate that, to learn how to turn that stress response off, to learn how to relax at any moment of the day. So, as I said, set your alarm 3 times a day. When that alarm goes off, check in with your breathing. For almost every emotion, you're gonna have a different breathing pattern for that. So what you can do is when your alarm goes off and you become conscious and aware of how you're breathing, I want you to change that. Just change that as you become aware of it. You can do this from anywhere. Take 4 minutes and just become conscious and aware of your breath, breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth, engaging your diaphragm, belly breathing, making sure your belly is rising when you breathe in and falling when you breathe out. Take 4 minutes. Breathe in to a count of 4 seconds, because rhythmical breathing will put you in coherence. Breathing in for 4 seconds and then breathing out for 8 seconds. By extending your exhale, you are triggering your parasympathetic response, which is the opposite of the sympathetic response. That is when your body can do all of the things that it's supposed to do, like digest your food. It won't do those things when you're in that sympathetic response, because all it's getting you ready to do is to fight or flight. So by extending your exhale, you are triggering that parasympathetic response. You are allowing your brain and your body to calm down, to get in a state of flow. This is really great to do if you're at work or something big is happening in your job, you're trying to create something, it's gonna put you in stress. So this is a really quick and easy way to sort of relax your mind, get into a flow state before you go into any kind of meetings or creating something new, whatever you're trying to create. This is also really good with spouses and children. When you notice yourself kind of getting into that state of overwhelm or whatever it may be, you can use this, just breathing in for 4 seconds, breathing out for 8 seconds. Do that at least 10 times. Conscious, slow breaths. Do it at least 10 times, or do it up to 4 minutes. In for 4 seconds, out for 8 seconds. You will immediately notice a result. You will immediately notice your body calming down, your mind calming down. The hardest part is actually reminding yourself to do it and wanting to do it, because a lot of times when we're in that state, we actually don't want to get out of it. So that's something that you can do right away. I'm going to post links in the description below to 2 different breathwork meditations that I have here on our YouTube channel. You can do this right before going to sleep. It will help you just ease into sleep and sleep really, really well. You'll notice more energy throughout your day because your body isn't working extra hard on trying to utilize the oxygen in your system. On an emotional level, so if we're going up the scale, we're starting at just a physical level, then we're going up the scale to the emotional level. Emotions is energy in motion. So emotions literally get trapped inside of our body, as I talked about from age 0 to 7. They get trapped and we don't ever release them. In my breathwork mini series, I show a video of a polar bear that's actually releasing the stress response from its body. After going into a fight or flight response, it shows him shaking and releasing that pent up stress and pent up energy in his body. So animals know how to do this in nature. When a gazelle gets chased by a lion, and then once it knows that the threat is clear, it will shake that stress response off. It will shake that anxiety out and go right back into homeostasis. It won't stay in that state of fight or flight like we do as humans. We don't ever try to get out of that response. We don't know that we can get out of that response. And so emotionally, the same things happen. So think about from just from age 5 to 10, think about all the times that something happened where you got a strong emotional charge from it. Think about, like I said earlier, your parents fighting or getting in a fight with a friend, which at that age is your whole world, or not getting something you wanted, or, trauma. Some people have a lot of trauma that happened in those younger years. And the thing is, we store that emotion in our bodies. It's literally like bubbles and pockets that have built and built and built and built. And in order to move past those, we actually have to release that energy from our body. To move into higher emotional states, we have to allow these sort of bubbles to come to the surface and be released. We have to allow all that energy, all that anxiety, all those really dense emotions to come to the surface and to be released. And breath work for me has been key in releasing emotions from from my body, and releasing these sort of dense energies and ascending these dense energies up. Breathwork has been my biggest tool. I've had many emotional releases while doing breathwork where my body is shaking uncontrollably, and afterwards I feel the difference. And here's the thing, if you want to start creating a new life or just creating new emotional states, you're gonna have to release these pockets and bubbles of all these stored emotions you have stored in your body for your whole life. And it doesn't just end there. We will continuously do that. So it's a process. It's using breathwork on a continuous basis to constantly be releasing that sort of stuck energy in our body. So how this can impact you, if you are trying to do anything new in your life, if you're trying to create something new, but yet you have all these emotions stored in your body, you're not going to be able to do that because your autopilot in the background is to feel scared, to feel fear, to feel shame, to feel guilt, all of those things. They're all stuck in your body. And so if you aren't working with those, nothing is going to help you achieve that next level. Nothing is going to help you allow yourself to feel more whole, to feel more in love, to feel more joyful in your life, because you're still holding on to these more dense emotions. And here's the amazing thing, you don't even always have to know what the emotion is when doing some more intense breath work. You don't even have to know what the emotion is. You can just go into the breathwork session with the intent to release some dense emotion that needs to be released, and just merely the intention of that will allow that sort of to come to the surface. So what are some ways that you can start working with breathwork on an emotional level? Here's the thing, one thing I do know for sure, we will never release energy or emotion from our body unless we feel safe to do so, because of that reptilian part of our brain. Just like the gazelle won't release the energy, the stored up anxiety, until he knows the threat has disappeared. The problem is, in your life, the threat is everywhere. The threat is your mother-in-law. The threat is your husband. The threat is your boss. The threat is your neighbor next door. That's the threat everywhere, constantly. So if you don't turn off that response and you don't feel that feeling of safety, you will never release that emotion. So for me, I think when we're working with this rhythmic breathing and you're so in the present moment, you're so in your body, you are turning off that fight or flight response, and you're gaining access to all the subconscious things that are in your mind, which means you are being peeled open for these things to sort of come to the surface, these emotions, this energy that's in your body to come to the surface. And that is done by this sort of rhythmic, fast breathing. You're pulling energy up. I also teach in my breathwork pelvic floor lock, which is even more so allowing those dense emotions to come to the surface. So between the pelvic floor and the rhythmic fast breathing, you're changing the pH level in your bloodstream. And so your body almost goes into a state where it thinks it's dying. There's a massive release of DMT. There's a massive release a lot of times of oxytocin. There's a massive ascension of these dense emotional things that are stored in your system. So if you are wanting to work with releasing these stored emotions, you're going to want to do longer breath sessions. You're not going to want to do the daily ones that are, 20 to 25 minutes, a couple rounds of rhythmic breathing, some breath retention, maybe a little bit of pelvic floor. Those are things you can do every single day. When you're working with wanting to release an emotion, you're going to do more rounds. You're going to do more pelvic floor exercises. You're really going to work with getting your body and your mind into a space where it allows it. When you're doing these rhythmic breathings, it's accessing and triggering the limbic system in the brain, which is where essentially all of those things are stored, all of your identities, we'll say. And so it's working with your first center energy, that's where that dense emotion is stored, and your limbic system in the brain, and allowing these things to come to the surface. It's allowing trauma to come to the surface. Trauma you may not even realize that you have stored in your body. So it's extremely powerful in these longer breathwork sessions to release these stored emotions, and then really imprint what you do want to feel, and you open yourself up to be able to access more joy, to be able to access more happiness, wholeness, freedom in your life, not just in your life, but in you, in your body. So thirdly, how breathwork can help you grow spiritually. I will say breathwork and meditation, both of those for me, breathwork can be meditation, it is what has allowed me to grow spiritually. It's shown and talked about in my Soma training. It's ancient tribes and these ancient rishis would take this medicine from the ground, essentially plant medicine, and they would have these sort of out-of-body mystical experiences and connect with higher realms than what we can connect in our 3D senses. And it ran out. And so they had to figure out a way to reach these sort of enlightened states without taking this plant medicine. And what they discovered was their breath. They could use their breath in different ways to reach these heightened states. Again, very similar to the emotional release, in my opinion, is that it's sort of shutting that fight or flight response down. It's activating this sort of deep, oldest parts where it's not just, I talk about in my workshops, not just from this lifetime, but many lifetimes before, which is how you grow spiritually. And it's allowing yourself to get to these more enlightened states to connect with something that is bigger than you, that is bigger than what you can experience with your 3D senses, that grows you spiritually every time. Some people choose to do that through plant medicine or different things. I do believe that you can achieve these super heightened states through breath work because I've had these sort of out-of-body crazy experiences while still being in my body. And that's another reason why I love breathwork so much as a way to grow spiritually. So many people I saw would get on a spiritual path, especially people with a lot of trauma, and it was really easy for them to go out of their bodies, to sort of have these really crazy, insane, mystical experiences, but then not want to come back in their body, not want to embody the energy that they just experience in their everyday life. So it's sort of used subconsciously as an escape mechanism to have these spiritual experiences and connect on such a deeper level, but then being able to walk into your life every single day in that energy. And that for me has been my biggest spiritual growth. In the beginning, it was all about having these mystical experiences, going out of body, going well beyond, what we can experience in the 3D. And that was a chase for me. And it was what I needed at that time to grow really quickly spiritually. But the last couple years has been the biggest growth. And that has been all about embodying the energy that I experience when I have those sort of crazy mystical kundalini things happen to me. My lesson has been all about embodying that, pulling that in, living that every single day. And that is where I've noticed the biggest growth for me spiritually is being in my body. Make no mistake, those amazing experiences I had in the first couple of years of my spiritual growth were what I needed. I needed to see. I had no evidence before then. I had no comprehension for what a spiritual path was or spirituality or what spiritual experiences were like. So for me, I needed to have those in the beginning to remember who I am, to see what is possible. And I had to walk that path first before I was ready for the next step, which was embodying that energy, which is why I'm so passionate now about the workshops that we put on, because these workshops are all about embodying that energy. It's all about experiencing what that feels like, letting go of all those really dense emotions, ascending them, and then being able to actually embody that through your life, embody the very best version of yourself in whatever form that is, connecting to that deeper self, letting go of the ego more and more and more, living your purpose out, whatever that may be. It doesn't have to be a spiritual path. It could just be something that you're extremely passionate about. That is a spiritual path. Doing these longer, more intense, kind of like what you do when you're wanting to have some emotional releases along the same lines. It's reaching these really heightened states. It's working a lot with the pelvic floor because you're working with that first chakra and you're sending it up to the 8th chakra. In my workshops now, we're really working on pulling the energy down, pulling the energy up, meeting in your heart center, embodying this energy, anchoring it into your body. So with that, we will do the longer rhythmical breathing to 5 rounds we do in the workshops of this rhythmical breathing followed by breath retention. using the pelvic floor, using high intense music. That's sort of the staple of Soma breathwork, is using this high energetic music that sort of gets you into that place where you can just get lost in it. You can get lost in the moment and lost in it. The more that you get lost in it, the more access you'll have to that 5D realm, because you're getting out of your mind and you're just getting lost in the experience and using your body to build that energy so you can sort of have these spiritual awakenings. Those are ways that breath work affects you in all three areas of your life, and what you can do to grow in all three areas of your life. And this is why I love Soma breath work. There is so many uses for your breath. There's so many changes you can make in your life, because here's the thing. When you feel better physically, when you're able to sort of release these really dense emotions you've been holding on, when you're able to connect spiritually, you will be in alignment with your purpose. You will be waking up every day feeling good physically, feeling good emotionally, feeling good spiritually. You will follow the path of your freedom. You will do things that have been standing in your way in your life of you not living the best version of you not living the life that you're supposed to be living. I know I wasn't for a very long time, until I had my spiritual awakening, until I knew that I could do these sort of really tough things, and I had to work with it constantly, and I have to work with it constantly to elevate to the next version of me, the next best version of me. And for me, breathwork has been the tool to grow in all those areas, so I can walk the path that I'm supposed to walk, so I can be in alignment with the highest version of myself. I can embody the best version of me, and therefore can offer to the world the very best version of me. I can offer to everybody around me, people I love, I can offer them the very best version of me, because I am in alignment. I am embodying the empowered self. Start putting into practice today. It's really easy. It's not hard. It's a great practice. You will notice the results right away. You can take my Breathwork 101 mini series. It's available. I'll leave the link below. You can do it from the comfort of your own home. It gives you a really good basis and solid foundation to build upon. It teaches you the very basics of your breath and breath work. So then you can really start to build on that. So you can go deeper emotionally, so you can go deeper spiritually. The Breathwork mini-series is a great place to start for that. I will have links below for the 2 workshops we have coming up. I would love to see you all in person. I definitely recommend to have some sort of knowledge and practice before coming to one of our workshops of any kind of breath work or meditation. And I invite you all to start trying it, implementing it into your life right away. For everybody that knows me knows I am not about just knowing the knowledge. I'm about taking the action once you know the knowledge, because that's the only way you truly change your life. And changing your breath will change your life if you take action. I love you all. Thank you for watching. Mwah.